So I'm going to start. Did you ever throw out a photograph? If the answer is yes, please turn the camera on. Okay, quite a few. Did you ever take a photograph with you while traveling? I mean a physical photograph. So everybody from the first question, you can leave your camera still running on. Okay. Could you recall one family photograph that you can describe in detail from your memory? Right, quite a few more. And the last question, did you ever feel emotionally attached to a photograph of a deceased person? Right, so I can see by now there are quite many cameras on, so great. So this is the beginning, and now I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. And so I'm a visual artist. I'm based in Israel. I studied in Israel for my first degree. I studied photography and education, and then I studied MA in photography and urban cultures in Goldsmiths. Later on, I also studied phototherapy, and everything is connected with this project that I'm going to present today, which is, I'm just going to share my screen. My project, which I started in 2012, and it's called The Time Elapsed Between Two Frames. And I would like to start with a sentence by Christian Boltanski. Often it's the photograph and not the face of the disappeared that we remember. We are all simply jigsaw puzzles of our ancestors, our faces, our minds, our pieces of the dead. I first started this project while I was a student at Goldsmiths, and there was one lesson about the family album, and I always carried this box of photographs with me when I was traveling, with a few photographs of my family, very old photographs as well. And among them was this photograph from 1972. The top photo is of my parents 10 years before I was born. It was a snapshot. It was a very spontaneous photograph, and it was done. I remembered it, and I wanted to have an experiment done. So I posed along with my partner for this photograph. And I tried to make it as similar as possible with what we were wearing, with the atmosphere of the photograph. That was very difficult because we just had to pretend. And also there's a real difference of heights between my partner and myself, unlike my parents. So I had to just stand on top of a few books to take the photograph. So I would just press the button and then go back, take the photo, and back and forth for like, I don't know how many times until it worked out. The reason I started doing it because I really look like my mother in an uncanny way. And people would always point that out for us. And that always intrigued me. So I wanted to see what happens. I wanted to get a different view upon myself, like an outer view upon myself. And that's what I started doing with this photograph. So I took it back to class, and I was amazed to see the reaction of the people, because it was a very personal photograph of my parents from my family album, and I didn't think anyone would be interested. But I was surprised to see that people were very interested, as if it was a photograph of their own family. So I said, okay, there is something there going on, some kind of interest. So I started making more experiments. This was the second experiment. On the right, this is my nephew, and on the left, that's his father. That's a photograph from 1980, the original photograph. And we were also trying to make it as similar as possible. I was always interested in similarities between people, between strangers. I always just find myself looking at people on the train and thinking, oh, they look like this or that. So that was really interesting for me to experiment. And also that enabled me to look through other people's family albums, which was really interesting for me. because as a child, I would always sit and look at photographs for hours and hours, and looking into other people's family stories and mythologies was very interesting for me. I kept on doing this project with, this was only the third photograph, but by that time, I didn't think it was a project yet. And every time, I used to live in London then, and then every time I would come back home for a visit in Israel, I took a few more photographs because it was easier for me to set up in Israel, people I know. And this was actually done in the same location. And when I looked for a photograph with the family members, there was a note next to this photograph saying, "On Yoske's chair." And Yoske is a name in Hebrew, and so that was his chair, and it was, I guess, a very important detail to put in the family album. I also was trying to make it as similar as possible, and you could see the person at the back. I asked someone to just walk in the back as well. This was also done in the kibbutz where I live right now, and I had a connection before. And this is also on the left, a mother, and on the right, her daughter, the original one from 1978. So in 2017, 5 years into my project, I started studying phototherapy as my interest grew in the therapeutic possibilities that lay in the family album. I wanted to better understand the meaning of the family album as a place you can always go back in order to have a new perspective about your reality and different stages in life. We can learn about relationships within the family, return and reassess ourselves and our position in the family and how it affected our self-confidence. We can also learn a lot about the body language we have towards different people in the family, signs of violence and abuse, signs of deep caring and appreciation. They are all there for us to look for. About this photograph, it was a very unique one, and it takes a long time for me to set up this photograph, and this was done very quickly because on the left is Claire, my friend, and she also studied at Goldsmith, and we went, a few friends, to visit her in Italy. And I want to say something before that. So I would like to say something about Freud's essay, The Uncanny, and then I will go back to Claire and Maria, her great-grandmother. He talked about the idea of the double as an uncanny experience to be considered by reasons of looking alike, and later widens it to the one that possesses knowledge, feeling, and experience in common with the other. I, of course, am seeing it in my doubles project. And so Freud goes on, for the double was originally an insurance against distractions to the ego, an energetic denial of the power of death. However, from having been an assurance of immortality, it becomes the ghastly harbinger of death. So Claire just found this photograph all of a sudden, and then she realized that she looks like her great-grandmother, which she was never aware of that fact. And when she found this photograph, we were just staying with her in Italy, and we just decided that we have to do this photograph. So it was arranged within 2 days, which is very rare. And it's very hard to see here, but you can see there's like a ghost at the back. And I tried to recreate the ghost at the back also in the left photograph. Barth referred to photographs as the return of the dead. And I think we can see it here very clearly that Claire just looks like her. And after 4 generations, that's just, that was very remarkable for me and also for her, I think. This photograph is actually the only photograph where you can see the same people in both of them. So the bottom photograph is from 1986. And that's a mother and her parents-in-law, and on the top, that's her daughter and her grandparents. And you can see the passages of time, not only on the people that you see in the photograph, they are 26 years older in the top photograph, but also you can see the location. It's exactly the same location. It used to be a new neighborhood, and then without any greens in it, and then all of a sudden 26 years later you can hardly see the houses at the back because they're covered with a lot of trees and bushes. This photograph is of a father and a son. The one on the left is the father, And I don't always say, I actually had one exhibition in which I marked in black the left and the right signs, so that people will not know, and let them see if they can realize which one is which. And the one on the right is the son, and he's a very good friend of mine, but I could not believe it was him, but when he showed me his father's photograph, because he always has a beard. And for this photograph, he actually took it off for me to take the picture, but it was hard for me to see the remarkable resemblance in this photograph. This photograph, the original one, is also of a father and a son, and you can see a different feel to it, because it's more artistic, and I don't think you find as many as this in a family photograph. I think I know the person who took the original photograph, and he was at the time a photography student, so it would be really like him to take a photograph of this nature. It was from 1977. Another topic I wanted to address in my project is the transgenerational trauma. And this is visible in this photograph, because the one on the right was taken in 1947. It's a couple on their wedding day, and they were Holocaust survivors from Auschwitz, and they actually had nearly no family left. And at the back of this photograph was sent to Israel to very distant relatives of theirs as a postcard, and there were words written at the back saying, just that you know, we are alive, we survived. And the couple on the left is the granddaughter and her partner. And when I met her, she knew about my project, and she brought this photograph of her grandmother, and I couldn't see her grandmother in her, because there is a deep sadness in her eyes, which was really hard for me to understand until right to the moment that we actually took the photograph. This photograph also presents the similarities. It's a father and a son, and the father, the top photograph is the father with his granddaughter, and also the bottom, and the daughter on the top is the granddaughter from the top is the daughter of the man in the bottom photograph. So in my project, I'm trying to look for people who look alike, and they need to look the same age as well. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are the same age, but they need to look alike. For in this photograph, the man on the top is in his 50s, and the man on the bottom is in his 70s. So just to show you how people used to look older than they do today. And the man on the bottom, his name is Amos, and he recently passed away, unfortunately. So another photograph, it's father and a son. The father is on the bottom, the son is on the top, and then the son on the right top is the son of the right. So I'm sorry, it sounds a bit confusing, but I hope you understand. It's from 1974. Another photograph, mother and daughter, and also there's a big gap in the ages between them. So the one on the left is in her 40s, whereas the daughter on the right, the mother on the right, is in her 20s. And so there is the issue of the performance here, because everybody are acting all the time, especially in front of the camera. We have a lot of thoughts. We think about, especially then when taking a photograph was a very unique happening, more than it is these days. And so in my project, I can see a double act. One act is the original act of the person photographed in the original photograph, and then there's the other role that my protagonist assumed for those photographed to understand the original role of the person that was trying to convey a message to the future generations. This photograph, I think, is also interesting because you can see a similarity between older people. So we always pay attention to similarities in young children or young people because we usually know the parents. But once the people are older and their parents have passed away, then you need to see, when you see the resemblance, it's not that clear. So it's really interesting to see that as we are getting old as well, we still keep looking like our parents. So this photograph, the bottom is the mother and the top is the daughter. And it was taken in 1985. This photograph is really interesting because I wanted to do it for quite a while, and the problem was that the woman on the right used to have shorter pregnancies, so we needed to wait to the third child in order to catch it on time. And so the woman on the left is the mother, and she's pregnant with the woman on the right. And that was taken in 1979. I think you can see a very unique, intimate look, which shows the relationship between the photographer and the photographed person, which that was the husband of the woman, and I was trying to also play the role as the photographer in order to get this very tender, loving looking look. So in 2013, those photographs were presented in a group exhibition at the Photo Fusion in London. And I was also trying to show the moments that followed and the moments before the original photograph was taken. Because we are also used to looking at still photographs in black and white. And I was always trying to imagine how those people looked when they were alive in real color and sound and movement. And that was the purpose of those videos that I took. So I just show a very short portion of them.
אני אסתכל על התמונה שנייה. אני יודע לעשות את החיוך שלו.
So I think this talks about a little bit about a decisive moment, and now a photograph just becomes a very unique moment in the family life, because this moment is just happened to be taken as a photograph. It could have been any other moment, and yet this moment became the memory of the family. So I think that this notion is really, really interesting, how arbitrary everything is. It just happened to be this moment and not another. And then also recently, I found this feature in the MyHeritage website. I don't know if you heard about it, but they're taking all photographs that you upload and then they make them move. So it just kind of brings back the dead. And I was thinking a little bit the same about my project. So at this point, sorry. At this point, it was a turning point for this project, because I had a lot of interest coming from the German media. It was published in Spiegel Online and in the Welt and a few more other newspapers. And there was also an arte bit made about this project. So I would just want to show you a very short moment just depicting the way I work.
Fotografie. In den Norden Israels, dort, wo der Krieg nicht hingekommen ist. Großvater war 1948 Major im israelischen Unabhängigkeitskrieg. Enkel Noam ist Reservist und hofft nicht noch einmal in den Gaza-Krieg zu müssen. Beim Shooting mit Zailer schlüpft er in die Rolle seines Großvaters. 2 Generationen später, derselbe Krieg. Auf dem Spielplatz eine andere Zeitreise. Der kleine Alon soll mal so gucken wie Papa damals, vor 30 Jahren. Gelöste Atmosphäre, ein ähnliches Setting und dann der magische Moment.
Der Ausdruck ist sehr wichtig.
Right, okay, so so this just marked the beginning of the doubles families stage in my project. So I was interested in doing more than one generation for the same family. So this is a grandfather and a grandson. I think it's clear which one is the grandfather. And then in this photograph, the child on the left is the son, oops, sorry, is his son. And then, sorry, this one is his son and that's his son. I hope I'm clear. If not, then do just a mark or something and I will explain again. So these are 3 generations from the same family. And this is on the left, the mother and her daughter on the right. And then this is the granddaughter and the great granddaughter on the top. And here is also the same location, but you can see it's a different, it's more modern way of transportation. And then on the left, it's the mother and 2 daughters. And then on the right, that's her daughter, one of the girls, and her 2 children. And this is the daughter from the previous photograph and her son with the costume. So my first solo exhibition in Tel Aviv in HaKibbutz Gallery was in 2015, where I presented all of the photographs that you've seen so far. And then this is the second part where I was invited by the Focus Gallery in Innsbruck, Austria. I was invited to do a residency, which was called In Situ, and I made, up to this point, I made 20 pairs, and then in the residency, during a 7-week period, I made 20 more. So that was very exciting because had a lot of a big financial support, and I could do whatever I basically wanted and do very, very complicated photographs like this one. Before, I tried to pick photographs which weren't as complicated, but now because I had a team of people helping me, and we published a call out for people to come and see if they want to take part in this project, and then I could choose the people and choose the photograph, and that was really great. So you can see on the left, on the right, the mother and then her daughter on the left, and we had to rebuild the entire living room. And this is the left, the father on the left is, and the son on the right, and then the child on the left with wearing the glasses is the adult on the right, and his 2 sons. And it was very interesting for me to just take regular photography albums and just put them in an art gallery. A very interesting process. So on the left, you can see the grandfather, and then on the right is grandson. And that was really interesting photograph to do because the grandfather is actually still riding his motorbike to this day, and is I think he's around 80 years old. And the only connection I had to Skype with the grandson to see if he looks like the photograph, the original photograph. I've never spoken to the grandfather. And then the next point is that I'm knocking on the grandfather's door and he opens the door for me, and then I see him as he is today. And the other photograph that I've seen of him is younger. So it was a very unique experience, like traveling through time to meet this guy. The original photograph is from 1960. And this photograph, the one on the right, is a father and his mother. And then on the left, you can see his son and his sister. So the woman on the left is also the daughter of the woman on the right. And this was very interesting to see, because in this place was not changed by time. They kept everything exactly the same as it used to be, and there are still people living there, so it's funny. The only thing they changed, I think, is like the order of the photographs in the back was different. So that was a little funny. This is the great-grandson of the one on the right of the man on the left. So this photograph was taken in 1918. It's the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Just to show you how old it is. And we had just had to build everything up for this photograph, including the uniform, which we could not find any uniforms like that. And this photograph is of the grandparents of the woman on the right. And I think I just was not aware how important it was to the Austrian media that the couple on the right is a gay couple. And I guess for them it was a big deal. For me, it was just like redoing the same photograph with the same connections and as there are in the original one. And this is a gay couple. And I was asked quite a lot about this. But for me, I care about the relationship between the people. So once I wanted to do a photograph with a person that the original photograph was a father and son with a child. And then because this person did not have children, it was very difficult for me to do, because I wanted to maintain the connection between them. And this was also done in Austria, and it's a double photograph. So we'll see in the next one. On the left, you see a father and a daughter on her wedding day, and on the right, the son of the man and the daughter of the woman. And it's exactly the same dress. And the guy on the top photograph is the same guy that's on the left photograph here, and his grandson. So he was an Olympic swimmer. And yeah, the Austrian sun is not like the Egyptian sun where the original photograph was taken. It was very hard to do. It was from 1951. Here you can see the father on the right and then the son on the left, and it's exactly the same location. So you can also see the passage of time. And on the bottom, the mother and her daughter. It was some kind of school trip, this photograph. And yeah, it was taken in 1982. The one on the left is the father, and then the one on the right is the son. And it was taken in 1986. And Barth in Camera Lucida talks about finding a photograph of his mother prior to the time he was born. This version of his mother, he did not know how his mother and his setting became a part of a general history because of the artifacts surrounding her, which are strange and remote, unlike her. It describes this tension between the two. The tension is presented in many photographs from the family album, and often I think in present times how my belongings may look to future generation as alienated, almost like archaeological artifacts. Again, mother and daughter, 25 years gap, 1993. And Susan Sontag in On Photography talks about how every family designs its own chronicle of self-portraits. And often the family album is only a thing that remains of a family, which is scattered everywhere with time. So that's the only thing that remains from the family. This is also the same location, and they nearly had all the same things with them, only the wallpaper is a different one. That was also very difficult to produce because the boy is the youngest that I worked with. I tried once to do it with a 1-year-old baby, but that was really impossible. This boy here is the youngest boy that I ever worked with. Again, a photograph of a mother and a daughter. We had to redo the book because we couldn't find it. And also a mother on the top, a daughter on the bottom. So you can see as you look at all the photographs, as the time passes, you can see the different types of photograph and how the family album has evolved. You can see how the older photograph used to be studio photograph. There are very few of them. And then as time passes, there are more and more photographs that we have as families. And today, obviously, the massive quantity of photographs, but none of them is printed. Mother on the left and daughter on the right. This is also a very unique photograph because it looks more of professional photograph made by a model photographer or some kind of fashion photographer. So I think it's more unique also. And you will see, I will show you a little bit of it in a film made about this. It's from 1974 and the gap between the photographs is 44 years. This photograph is done with the daughter saved the mother's clothes, and it was a very emotional photograph for her because her mother passed away at a very young age. A winter photograph, very typical Austrian photograph, which was also interesting for me to see how different the trips are between Israel and Austria. They look very, very different. The snow and the desert. And another photograph, the father is on the right, and then the son on the left with an unknown friend. And memory is constructed through photograph, and their existence is very random. So people remember events because of the photograph. That does not mean they have actually been there, even if sometimes they are certain they have. And so these experiences find their way into the family pantheon arbitrarily, almost like life itself. So just something happened, it was photographed, it's in the memory. But then if something was not photographed, then people tend to forget about it or not remember it as importantly as another moment which it just happened to be photographed. This is how these photographs were presented because they were originally slides and not paper photograph. This is how they were presented in the gallery, at the Focus Gallery in Austria. And yeah, and basically when I finished the project in Austria, and now it's probably finished for me, I had 40 photographs. So that means 40 different photographers and me that took all of these photographs that were presented in this gallery. I just want to show you a little, just skjort bits about how I work for this project. So just forward a little bit.
damals angezogen und die Rolle übernimmt eben jetzt die Schwester. Du wirst doch bitte.
So in one shooting, for example, it was funny that the person who photographed the same photograph, the original one, still had the camera with him. So he gave it to me, and I would use this one to establish the right angle. It was very, very helpful.
Yeah.
When you flip through family albums of people who live in Austria, then it's different from when you flip to family albums of people who live in Israel. It was winter clothes, and here it was still summer, so it was even impossible to buy winter clothes. So I just had to buy H&M female cardigans for boys and then paint them with like a red marker and a blue marker by hand. It's like the entire process of me looking at the people becoming other people for a split of a second. And of course it's not real, and of course they're posing, and it can be exactly the same, and they're not the same person, they're altogether different people. But it's just these small bits of time when you see that something just happened. And try like to break a really big smile. Yeah, because then you can see like the shape of the face that you had. Sometimes you see a very, very intimate look towards the photographer, not necessarily.
Oops. I don't know what happened, sorry.
Female cardigans for boys, and then a bit of a second. And of course it's not real, and of course they're posing, and it can be exact. But it's just these small bits of time when you see that something just happened. And try like to break a really big smile. Yeah, because then you can see like the shape of the face that you had. Sometimes you see a very, very intimate look towards the photographer, not necessarily the camera. And then there's me, and I need to become that person who gets that intimate look out of that person.
En dan lookst je om me. Ja. En dan andersom. Zo, en dan look zo. Zo. En dan zo, en dan look je Oh, is it okay, Orly?
No, you need to put your hand. When you look through the photos, you look at your memories, but they're not your memories anymore.
Sorry,
it's just
I'm going to
moments in
jump again.
time. He was quite old. And then we came in the morning with all the equipment, and we saw the guy with the Porsche there having a drink or something. And behind it, there was a mountain. And so everything had to work together. The location of the Porsche, the right angle of the mountains behind it, and of course, Annalena, the daughter, was about to shoot for this particular photograph. If you
think Orly should know.
Yeah.
Spannend, ja, jetzt spannend. Aber es hat ein paar Momente gegeben, die waren nicht ganz richtig. Ja, von ihrem Vater habe ich mich nach 30 Jahren scheiden lassen, da ist einiges wieder. Aber es war gut so, man darf sich nicht verstecken.
So yeah. Oh, and some airplanes in the background. It wasn't back then. The team here has already found locations for me and found some of the accessories that I needed for the shootings. And the pictures, they're so powerful that they could do that to you. They can make you happy, and they can make you sad, and they can lift you up and bring you down, and they're just pieces of paper, just like these artifacts that they have no meaning, to the point where the image is printed on them, and then that's it. You have to keep them. You can't throw them out. You can't do anything with them because it's too emotional. It's just normal people on the walls. There are.
Right. Yeah, so that's, you can watch the film online. I just want to show you pieces of the process of my work. And yeah, just to say that I'm a performer as well in this project. I'm performing the part of other photographers. And this project is also going to be presented again at the end of the year, hopefully, if Corona lets us do it, in Austria in a festival. And also it's supposed to be in a museum in Israel, but I don't know if Corona has changed that or not. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching and listening.